Are we ready to kick off, gang? Yeah, we all up for this? So welcome to our audience who are here to join us in our celebration of this fantastic project that we've been part of over the last year. It's called Time and Place. It's a project with people with dementia. It happened differently than perhaps anticipated, and you'll hear a little bit of the story as you're with us for the next hour and a half. You'll notice that we're recording this session. All that we're recording from the screen are the poets. You can see the poets and the people who've taken part in the project, the student supporters and our teacher, and that will be what the content of the video will be, and we'll make that available afterwards and send you the details. We're really kind of delighted to have this space to share this exciting project, and you'll hear a lot more about it over the next hour and a half. And most fantastically, I think you will hear the poems. You'll hear the poems that people created, and we'll talk a little bit about the impact of what that project has meant to people over this very, very strange year. You'll notice as our audience that you have got your camera turned off and your microphone turned off. So that's to make our space kind of comfortable and as safe as possible for us to just get on with our job. But we know you're there with us. We'll be using the chat box and trying to keep an eye on the chat box. If you want to leave any comments or even questions, pop them in there, and we'll do our best to kind of feed that into the things we are talking about. I'm Rachel Litherland from Innovations in Dementia, and we've been delighted to be supporting the project at a distance, but also helping to get this event off the ground with people who really want to share with you their work. So I'm going to hand over now to Jess, who is going to introduce herself and then invite everybody else to introduce themselves. There you go, Jess.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, I'm Jess. I'm one of the coordinators of Time and Place. Time and Place could not have happened without the people who have made it what it is, a fantastic testament to the ability of people to learn and encourage one another through creative work. I've seen the power of creative thinking when I volunteered for the script writing project Dreams and Visions, created and run by Keith Oliver and Liz Jennings. Through that project, I got to work with the Forget-Me-Nots, and it was genuinely the highlight of my week. So when the University of Kent advertised funding for community projects, I leapt at the chance to collaborate with Keith and Liz and work with the Forget-Me-Nots again. You can see some of their members in the crowd now. I approached Keith about running a creative project, and Keith enthusiastically brought in Liz. The first lockdown changed our original plans of gathering each week in the library to explore the history of Canterbury through poetry. But in doing so, people from as far as Fife were able to join in online and look around their homes in a new light. Exploring people's spaces and their memories attached to them has been an insight into their lives. It's been a joy to get to know more people through the project being online, and it constantly amazes me to see the positive offshoots of the project. What started as a poetry writing project has now led to a published book funded by Deep, various articles and talks, and a great example of intergenerational collaboration. So yeah, thank you for joining us today, and I'll now ask the poets and volunteers to introduce themselves. The volunteers are all, or were all, students of the University of Kent, and we're helping assist in confidence and just encouragement, really. So I'll just kind of go around the screen, and we can start with Irene. Could you introduce yourself and say where you're from, please?
Hello, yes, I'm Irene. I live in Fife in Scotland, and I'm a member of the Stand group in Fife, and welcome to everybody. Very happy to be here today.
Thank you, Irene. And Keith, could you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Keith. I live in Canterbury, and I'm a member of the Forget-Me-Nots group in Canterbury.
Thank you. Melvin, would you like to take it away?
Hello, I'm Melvin Brooks. I'm a member of the Forget-Me-Nots, and I'm just so glad to be in this fantastic collection of poems.
Thank you, Melvin. Thanks. Tracy, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. name's Tracy. I'm part of Sunshiners group, and I live in Hawkinge near Folkestone.
Thanks, Tracy. Gail, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good afternoon. My name's Gail and I live in a little town called Cleveland in Lancashire, and it's wonderful to be here this afternoon.
Fab, thank you. Frances, could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, good afternoon. I'm Frances and I live in the beautiful Brecon Beacons, and it's just terrific to be here and see everybody that was involved in the project again.
Absolutely, thank you. Nigel, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Nigel. I come from Swansea. I'm a latecomer to this party, but I'm so pleased to be here today.
Thank you. Brigitte?
Hello, I'm Brigitte and I'm part of the Sunshiners, and I come from Hawkinge near Folkestone.
Fab. Liz, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi there. Yeah, I'm Liz and I live in Canterbury, where I work as an author and a writing group facilitator.
Thank you. Laura, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hiya, so I'm Laura, I'm from London. When the project started, I was actually a student at the University of Kent, but I mean, it's been wonderful that I've been able to carry on with the project as it's been online. So yeah, I'm really happy to see everyone again.
Yeah, it's so great. Theo, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Theo. I'm currently a placement student with the KMPT and have actually joined the project after the book has been completed. But it's been really nice seeing how this project has grown even after the book has been published.
Thanks, Theo. And Lucy.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I live in East Sussex and I was a placement student with KMPT 3 years ago, and I continued volunteering since then. And I now study neuroscience at University of Sussex.
Fab. And then Steve, you definitely played a part of the project if you want to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jess. I'm Steve from Innovations in Dementia. I'm down in Exeter, and my role has been one to like press buttons and pull levers, which is what I'm doing today. And a very quick message to those of you who are our guests: your video and audio is turned off, and that's to save the kind of real estate of screen for people with dementia and other presenters. So I hope that's all okay. But that's why you can't see yourself and why you're being muted. Okay, thank you, Jess.
Oh, thank you. And then Keith, I believe you're taking it away from here.
Thank you everyone for those introductions. Yes, and it now falls to me to say a little bit about the project and then to get the next part of the afternoon rolling. So for many years as a primary school teacher and head teacher, I did recognise and championed the role of creativity in learning, not just in the arts, but in applying this to problem solving and also relationships. For me, there is no doubt that creativity supports us to build resilience, and for people affected by dementia, this is absolutely essential, as it is in these challenging times for everyone. Resilience does need practice and support, and is reinforced by the interaction with like-minded people. Both creativity and resilience are well placed to help deal with stress and anxiety, and whether it is art, music, sewing, working with wood or other tactile materials, or in the case of time and place, writing poetry, all of what I've said can really help a person's well-being, not just during the activity or project, but more importantly, beyond. And in doing so, are one of the keys to the door which opens to give us hope for today, tomorrow, and beyond. The project certainly came at the right time and place for me, and I think for others too. Some medical professionals suggest that whilst lovely, the health benefits from creative activities are unsustained. This project totally disproves this, as many poets continue to benefit from their engagement and have used it to inspire further writing, painting, or indeed teaching of others. Speaking of writing, here is my poetic contribution today, written in March, interestingly enough, 8 months after the project. It's called Time and Place, a Celebration. Forces of good protected by poetic shields, emerging from all three nations to this time and place. Pens we hold are mightier than the sword Dementia wields. Our words dispel fear and dread is erased. Formerly energized by travelling near and far, and placed proudly alongside my friends. Now locked down in this Corona Coaster streetcar, seeking from creativity the resilience upon which hope depends. When I hesitate, stumble or fall, when I'm weary and sleep brings little relief, when my heart remains big, but my mind becomes small, I'm taken to a time and place to restore self-belief. When actions seem pointless, to words we proceed, choosing our time and our place, moving fast, others a slower speed, adventurers energized by a distant embrace. Starting with kitchen lists and spices the scenes, moving acrostic to relax in our home. The tale unfolds, clothed in rich greens, constrained or released by structure, colour or monochrome. Young of years, young of heart, showing poetry is more than merely rhyme. Gathered together, today, though miles apart, willing travellers on a carousel of time. I'm now going to hand over to the next poet who's going to share her creative work with us, which is Gail.
Hi, good afternoon. And I wrote this poem during the lockdown when we was doing the time and place, and it's called Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, a new journey, slipping down the stairs, uncontrollably slipping away. Obstacles, frustration, anger and tears. Hide away, questioning and feeling empty. Why? What? How did this happen to me? My life is changing as I slide further down. Another step down, bump. I need to hold the rail. Need to stop myself sliding further down the stairs. I grab the rail. I hold on tight. I turn and pull with all my might. You are strong, you can do it. You will find a way, crawl and reach out, one step at a time, as I slowly climb my way back up, step by step. At last I climb back to the top. I should have known I wouldn't drop. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Gail. That was a splendid account of what living with Alzheimer's can be like. And thank you for sharing it today and including it in the book. I'm now going to move from Lancashire. We're going to zoom down back to my patch down here in Kent and bring Tracy into the party.
Thank you, Keith. I wrote this poem recently because obviously we're in spring now, and I'm a gardener. I like my garden. So this is the poem from a garden really. And I like colour, so it's called Colour the Seasons. I love colour, and through colour I recognise the seasons. But as they go from one to one, these colours bring me peace for no reason except to bring me joy and fun. Spring shows different shades of pinks and whites of blossoms in trees of yonder, with blue blankets of bluebells in the woods and yellow primroses and clementines as I wander. Summer is when everything finally comes alive, green leaves on the trees and flowers of every colour scattered giving nectar for all the bees. Autumn is when everything gets ready for hibernation. Leaves turn brown, red and gold, and the wind leads them on a merry dance, and I have to wrap up against cold. Winter comes and the trees are bare. Red berries appear on the holly bush. White snow, brown trees and purple heather. Bulbs we buy and then into the ground we push. These are the seasons and how I remember. I'm hoping that because I see will help me throughout the years and help my mind be free. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for sharing that, Tracy. You've painted a picture with those words in our mind. So thank you for that. That was lovely. Now, when the project was originally planned, as Jess introduced at the beginning, it was intended to take place face-to-face in Canterbury. And two of the early recruits to the project were Tracy and also the person I'm going to introduce next, which is Brigitte. Over to you, Brigitte.
Hello. Thank you. Hello. When I was diagnosed, my husband took the diagnosis quite badly, and I was aware of the tension on me. So I tried to write something for him, and I included it in the book. And it says, "Remember, I love you. You tell me that I've asked before. I tell you I don't know. Please don't tut or make a show. It's my memory failing, not me. I know your name, I know your face. Give me time for the cogs to work. My mind tries to work, it doesn't shirk. This condition of mine won't recover. I really want you to know. I'm hurting inside, but I don't want it to show. Fearful of how my life will be. With you beside me, I can face it all. I know our love will see us through. A love that's been so true. Please remember me as me. When the time is finally here, that my condition has won. Don't be sad, you'll always be my number one. Laugh, cry, sit and talk with me. Deep, deep inside, I'll know it's you. The time that the me you need may be gone. This condition will have won. But remember, I love you. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Brigitte. And knowing Robert, I can imagine the love, and I know the love that poem displays. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And it's lovely reading it, but it's even lovelier listening to you read it as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm now going to move to one of my oldest friends on the party today, which is Melvin. So Melvin, the stage is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Keith. Firstly, I would just like to say something about Time and Place. It's only £4.95, and it's such a fantastic book. I'd just like to say a few words of thanks to people. When my wife died in 2019 in November, I stopped writing poems, and I'd write a poem every day to my wife. And I had thousands hidden, and perhaps when I'm dead and gone, my children will do something with them. Firstly, I would like to thank Deep, Rachel Litherland, who's pushed the funding of this project, and foresight in doing so. Also Keith Oliver, my dear friend, and also Liz Jennings, a truly friend, not only of myself, but of Dementia. Also Jess Shaw. They got me writing again. And also the students who have volunteered without their help, it wouldn't have happened. And also I would like to thank Francis Isaacs, who made it all possible. Right, now I'm going to talk to my poem. It's quite a long intro. It's called COVID-19. It's all part of it. Sometimes it makes sense, and sometimes rhymes, and sometimes doesn't. So this is it beginning. The tide ebbs and flows. I see her hair flowing. I still remember. I can still see her as if it was only a second away. her smile, her walk. But COVID-19 got her, sent her from hospital into care homes, spreading COVID-19, killing thousands of our loved ones, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, and more. So many more. No one cares. Short memories, I'd say, and against our human rights. We could not see them before they left us alone and died on their own. Memory abound, so clear. We must search for a better way to smile again, wasting days and days fighting. Nights up half the night, through the dark nights and dark hours. We'll only sacrifice what time we have left, all alone. It's time to go from our sad stare, to find my way home to your smile once again. I can see her as if it was only a second away.
Thank you for those powerful words, Melvin, and so beautifully read. You did a great job there, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to say something about some of the message that Melvin has so brilliantly expressed in that poem. This week is, of course, Dementia Action Week. And as those of us who sit close within the Alzheimer's Society, or with Nigel with the Three Nations Dementia Working Group, we know what a hard-hitting campaign is being launched this year. And whilst it makes many of us feel very uncomfortable, it is the right campaign to have at this time. So those words, Melvin, you've expressed there are not easy to listen to. I know they weren't easy to write, but I thank you most sincerely from my heart for expressing them. Thank you. I'm now going to ask for Rachel and Steve's help, probably, because we have a member of the team who couldn't make it today because he's sitting an exam as we're actually performing. So we do wish him well, and that's Jonah. But he's found a few moments, thankfully, to make a little film, which we're going to hopefully share now with the audience and indeed with those on the panel.
Right, this is testing my capabilities a little, but let's go. Can you tell me, can I have a thumbs up, Keith, if this works?
Hi, my name's Jonah and I'm a student volunteer for the Time and Place project. When I first heard about the project, I was very nervous to volunteer because I did not know much about poetry. But as the project went on, I was able to learn different types of poems, including ones I've never even heard of, like a haiku. The project itself was very interactive and fun. We had tasks where we had to look around the house for inspiration. And I remember people's poems about like their gardens, their desks, and the random items in the kitchen drawer. One of the benefits for joining in the project was that people with dementia, as well as student volunteers like myself, were given the opportunity to learn the different styles of poetry. For me, one of the most important highlights, I'd say, with the Time and Place project was the social element. This is the intergenerational work between the student volunteers and the participants, where the students help the participants with dementia write their poems. During the project, we had the opportunity to talk with one another and interact, but not only between the volunteer and participant, but together as a whole. And one of my reasons for wanting to volunteer for the project was that I wanted to connect to people with dementia and hear their life stories. And throughout this project, it was great. I was able to see each writer's life stories through their poems. And as poems were shared among the group, we grew together emotionally, becoming a more supportive and loving bunch. Finally, despite the pandemic, I believe like everyone was extremely grateful for the project. I would definitely recommend future projects like this, as it has been highly rewarding. For myself, as well as the other volunteers and the participants. I think if the project didn't happen, we wouldn't have the worthwhile experience of creating these amazing poems and producing the book. And also, as well as forming the new bonds that we made from this project. Thanks for listening. Hi, my name's Jonah, and I'm a student volunteer for the Time and Place project.
Oh, Jonah, I can't get rid of Jonah.
About the project,
There we go.
Well, that was brilliant. And Jonah touched on so many points there that I think we should applaud and we should take on board, and hopefully we should try and remember, because this was very much an intergenerational project. And I think it platforms so much more than writing poetry. The poetry was the catalyst and what brought it together, but it really did tick so many more boxes than that. And now I'm going to hand over to Rachel to explore the next part of the afternoon.
So would you believe we're ahead of ourselves? That's fantastic chairing, isn't it? So we've got a little bit longer now to have a discussion. We thought we'd have a break from the readings and just pause for a moment and talk between us about what the impact of this project has been. But before we do that, I just wanted to say how tremendous it is to hear you read your poems. I've read your poems, I've got your book. Got your book here, but to hear you read your poems, it's a completely different experience, and I'm sure you experienced that in the workshops that you had. So yeah, just thank you, and kind of I'd be interested to kind of hear your thoughts about poetry and what poetry enables you to do. But we're going to have a conversation for about 10 minutes about the impact of this project. You know, what's it been like for you being involved in this project? What have you gained? What has been difficult? Anything? Brigitte?
It started at the pandemic, when the pandemic hit. Originally, I was going to go on the bus with Tracy to Canterbury, and then it was online. I felt quite low when it came about online because it felt like another thing was taken away from us. However, I did the first session with Liz, who is a fantastic teacher and gave me such enthusiasm for it. I've looked at my house in a different way, and I find what we did, sharing it with everybody, was brilliant. But also when lockdown opened, after we had finished this and just before the book, I went out for that very first coffee, and it was terrible. I was terrified. And I came home early. I left half a cup of coffee and came home early and wrote a poem about it. And the next time I went out, it felt better. I'd got it out of my system. I'd wrote it down. I'd produced something that I could look back on. And I still do it to this day. If something's bothering me, or I'm equally, if something's made me very happy, I'll write a poem. And I can't thank you enough for giving me that tool. It's been a lifesaver.
Well, thanks, Brigitte. Does anybody else want to comment? What Jess?
I just wanted to say, I remember you talking about writing a poem after the first traumatic outside coffee, and it's something that stuck with me. It's so fantastic to see that some of you have taken your poetry beyond, or the fact that Frances has been inspired to run her own painting course. It's so fantastic to see that this has got a lasting impact beyond the 5 sessions we ran.
Yeah, well, Liz said about taking a book out with you, and you can write things down, and I do, and it's brilliant. It really is.
Thank you. Keith?
There is certainly still a time and a place for poets and practitioners to write with us, and occasionally, I guess, as the dementia progresses, to write for us. But what this project really shows is that the earlier interventions can take place, such as this, the greater the benefits. And whilst Liz's teaching was exceptional, and she is an inspiring individual, and the support was extraordinary, at the centre of it all were 9 people with dementia. And those 9 people with dementia produced what they produced. And, you know, it's great credit to everyone who took part. And I hope that it can be used to challenge some of the preconceived ideas and some of the established trails of thought, and can actually be quite groundbreaking in its legacy. Because we're only ordinary people. There's nothing exceptional about the 9 of us, other than we came together at this moment in time to produce this special piece of work.
Did anything surprise you about this work, about this project? Francis?
Well,
I think that the depth of feeling that emerged from people, it was just so, it was so heartwarming to see. And I mean, I often read the book, not my own stuff, but everybody else's, and find it very moving. And it seems to have sort of kept going, because very often there are other people who I've found that write poetry, and I feel there's sort of a massive anthology of poems by people living with dementia. It seems to have brought out something in so many of us. It's just been the most wonderful thing. It's made COVID a whole different thing for me to be able to be involved in this. And the business of those flipping, is it the haiku with the syllables? Is it? Well, you know, I lie in bed at night counting and honestly, it's really difficult to just get it into the right rhythm. So I spend a lot of time on haiku and getting nowhere, because there's so many syllables in syllable.
Did you think of yourself as poets when you started this project? Did you join as a poet?
No.
Did that surprise you, Irene?
Yeah, that was a real surprise to me, Rachel. I joined because the other Rachel in the Deep Network had encouraged me to do so, and I joined thinking I would very quietly bow out as quickly as I possibly could, and that was my genuine sort of view on joining the project. And I was completely, my opinion completely changed almost immediately. Through the workshops with Liz and the comments and the feedback and reading everybody else's poetry. It was just fantastic. So it completely blew my whole, I'm never going to be able to do this, completely out the water, and indeed did quite the opposite, because it completely built up my confidence that since getting a diagnosis had completely been eroded and completely taken away. It allowed me to use my literacy skills. I used to be really quite proud of them, and they had really gone into hibernation. They were gone and not in use at all. And while I still would never consider myself to be a poet, the pleasure from writing poetry and from listening and enjoying other people's poetry has been immense. I do not have enough thank yous to thank everybody for the Time and Place project. It means the world to me. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Irene. That's really fantastic to hear. Melvin?
Right. Can you hear me?
I can.
Right. Well, I'd like to say that this book has dispelled the stigma surrounding dementia, because we're not all old that's wrote these poems, and it affects young and old alike. And I think people have got the wrong idea about dementia. They just think older people and in care homes have got it, but I can assure you there's hundreds of thousands out there that need help. And I think this just goes to show that what people can do with dementia. And I'd like to just say about this intro that I wrote in the Time and Place, because I think it's apt. will start. I originally did not want to take part in the poetry project because it had been difficult to write poems after my wife's death. But Liz awakened my love for poems and pushed me to start writing again. And when I'm low, I just start writing about different things, and they just seem to rhyme and mean things to me, just like my favourite poet, Wilfred Owen. And it's helped me tremendously. And it has helped me tremendously through this dark period of COVID, because there's not been a lot of help. And I can imagine these people that not have been diagnosed yet, and their families are wondering what comes next. And I can assure you that some things are nice, some things are not. But at the end of the day, we try and just do our best and to carry on as best we can until dementia gets hold of us.
Thanks, Melvin. I guess it's making me think about, you know, what inspiration other people with dementia might take from this. And I guess, you know, do you have any messages from this project for other people?
Are you talking to me?
All of you.
Oh.
Gail's got something to say.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm always saying it. Just because we have dementia doesn't mean it's the end. This is our new beginning, and this is where we learn new things, and we still can learn new things. And this is what people forget in a way. They think that we're just pushed to one side, and we're not, because we've just got so much to offer. We've got so much to give. And I think this has just proved, this time and place writing poetry, that people with dementia still can.
Thank you, Gail. Melvin. Oh, you're on mute, Melvin. We've done so well with our mute button so far.
All right, I forgot about that. That's my dementia. I forget what I was going to say now. Yeah. I'd just like to say that throughout my membership and joining the Forget-Me-Nots, I haven't met one person yet who's got dementia, or the people that help people with dementia. I haven't found anyone that's horrible yet. And that means a lot to me. And I'm pretty sure Keith's the same. Because, and all other people that have got dementia will probably say the same. I haven't met anyone that's horrible yet. The only people that are horrible are the people that who haven't got dementia. But I can assure you, there's a fantastic lot of people. There's a fantastic lot of people out there that help people with dementia. And I'm truly grateful for that.
And I think that links, Rachel, with your question, what Melvin's just said there, because, you know, we do want this project to have a legacy. We do want people to be inspired by it and to take on the baton and to run with it. And there are people out there with dementia, and also there's lots of people out there who can help people with dementia to write poetry. And we do hope that this helps a little way in moving that forward. And I'm reminded of the name Deep. You know, particularly the two E's, the engagement and empowerment. And what a fabulous example of people being engaged in something and being engaged with other people, and then in turn being empowered. I think that's quite inspirational.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point, Keith. I'm going to have to keep my microphone off. I've got a massive downpour just arrived. I'm going to move back to some of our readings and presentations now, and then we'll conclude a little later on with a final discussion. So if people in the audience have got questions, I think there probably will be enough time for me to pose them to the group. So if you have a question, pop it in the chat box and we'll see if we can squeeze it into our discussion at the end. But now I'm going to invite Liz to talk to us about being the teacher on the project.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, what a privilege it was. So as Keith and Jess have said, originally we'd hoped to meet physically, and then lockdown came and we couldn't. And for a little while, all seemed lost. But I think one day I was just rummaging through a kitchen drawer and looking for a rubber band or battery or something, and thought, you know, how we all have a drawer like that in our homes. And that sort of idea began to grow. And so I spoke to Keith and Jess about, well, how about if we explore our houses while we're in lockdown, we're stuck indoors, why don't we turn this into an opportunity? Because our houses are full of things that we have in common that tie us together, like that drawer in the kitchen, or that pile that we have on the side where we shove everything and forget about it. But our homes also tell our own unique stories. And I think that's been one of the really important things about Time and Place, that it's over distance and online has really connected us in our shared humanity and life experiences, but it's also revealed to us new things about each other and new ways of looking at things. So we began to look at the different rooms in our house and write poems inspired by those rooms. And the one thing I think that struck me, and it always hits me when we start a writing group, is that it takes real courage to join a writing group. And a couple of people, Brigitte and Irene, have already said they didn't really want to join. And I bet nobody really wanted to join. I bet Keith was the only one who wanted to join. But once you get past that initial terror of joining a writing group, it's so rewarding. I think people have so much baggage from school, unfortunately, from being taught English at school. It ruins people's pleasure quite often. They worry about grammar and they worry that they're going to be criticised. And of course, that's not what we were in it for at all. It was all about encouragement and taking pleasure in the process rather than really focusing on the product. And of course, by taking pleasure in the process, we've ended up with a fantastic product. So win-win. But when we started to look at how to run things, at first we thought about doing it on Facebook. And we realized that that was going to jump all over the place. So we settled on a blog on my website, and it's still there if anybody wants to use those materials. It's all still there on Liz Jennings Writer. We just left it up for people to keep using. And then the network of support became so important. The way the students worked with the writers, chatting with them about their responses to the poems, and scribing when necessary, and then posting poems up on the blog. People very quickly shared their work, and that's the really brave thing. To put your work out there takes guts. And so, you know, to each of you writers, I tip my hat with true respect, because it takes guts to share your work, and to read your work today takes guts. So, you know, you're so worthy of so much respect for what you've done with this project. And projects like this don't work unless people are brave and share their work. So, you know, really the team on this project was so interwoven with participants and supporters and facilitators. It really relied on everybody to make it work, and it's just been such a pleasure to all work together. I think the good thing about poems is that they're fairly small and they have guidelines, so they take away a bit of that fear of the blank page. But we did discover, as I think it was Francis who said, a dislike of syllables. People did not like syllable counting, apart from Tracy. You quite liked it, didn't you, Tracy? Yeah. Nobody else liked the syllables, Tracy. But, you know, as we were focusing on the process, we didn't get too hung up on the syllables. So if people didn't like them, we didn't worry about them. And the other thing was really that, yeah, as Brigitte said about continuing writing, we really did not want this course to run for the 5 sessions and then stop suddenly, because so many things, don't they, run on, they're great, and then they stop because the funding runs out and you're left with a kind of hole. And we really didn't want that feeling for afterwards. So that was why we recommended the poetry journaling. And it made me really tearful hearing you talk, Brigitte. I'm so happy you're doing that. I do it myself as well. I find, you know, I think poetry is a lifelong friend, and traveling with a notebook and a pen in your bag, you're never alone. You know, you've always got someone to confide in. And I think that's the beauty of the pen and the page. They don't judge you, they're just there for you. And you can pour it all out on there. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure pouring it all out together. And well, look forward to Time and Place too, hopefully one day, who knows. But yeah, I think that's me done. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And when one looks back over one's life, there are certain moments which you think to yourself, my goodness, that was a fortunate moment. And the moment when I met you 8 years ago was one of those fortunate moments. And I'm truly blessed to have you as a dear friend. So thank you for your leadership of this project and all the others we've done together. And most importantly, thank you for your friendship.
To you too, Keith. Thank you.
I'm now going to move on to a new friend, someone I didn't know just over a year ago, but has become a good friend and is an equally inspiring teacher, as I've witnessed over the last few weeks. I'm now going to introduce my friend Frances to you all.
Thank you, Keith. Yes, it's really difficult to tell you how much I absolutely loved being on this whole thing. I've always enjoyed writing, but all I've ever written is total drivel. And now I still write drivel, but it's more poetically formed than ever it was. So I'm very pleased to have learned how to write it properly. The other sort of, I think one of the main excitements for me were, apart from the thrill of writing the poetry and the joy of reading everybody else's, and the gratefulness I feel for having been part of this wonderful project, is the drawings, because I was so sort of pleased to be asked to do the drawings, and Rachel's putting them up on the screen. I was asked to draw illustrations of each section of the book as we went along, and of course I had read the poems by this time to make sure that when I started writing, it included everything that people have been mentioning. I mean, that is basically my kitchen with slightly better cabinets each side of it than we actually have. And the three ducks flying were my grandmother's, and they're not actually there, they're somewhere else. But you know, that's artistic license. But I wanted to try and convey the warmth of the kitchen with steaming cups of coffee and sort of the general, well, mine's always in a bit of a mess, but probably other people's isn't. But you know, I just wanted to convey that with the kitchen drawing. And then the next section, we moved to our sitting rooms, or lounges as we call them. And again, I wanted to try and bring in things that other people had mentioned, all to do with the sort of comforts of home. And although that isn't my home, it sort of gives you an idea of what a comfy lounge could look like, with all the cushions slightly pushed around as if we'd all been sitting in them. And it gives you, I hope, a feeling of comfort. And it, you know, it was very much inspired by that. Then the hallway. Now, we don't have such a thing in our house, so I sort of had to look through a variety of books and magazines to see what hallways look like. I included a staircase simply because a lot of you had written by this time staircase poems, which involve slightly longer sentences as you go to the top, and then shorter ones the other way on as you come down to the bottom. And people have talked about their shoes and their boots and their coats hanging up all over the place. And I thought, although it's hard to see from this picture, at the base of it, there is a skateboard at the bottom of the stairs. And I put that in simply to remind us all that life's never quite as certain as we think, is it? So that's right at the bottom of the stairs, just to remind us all of things. And then I moved to the bedroom. Now, elements of this are my bedroom. Only I just sort of wanted to put a little bit of everything, including an alarm making a noise to try and wake us all up again. and get us out of our dreams. But so that was the bedroom, and then the bathroom is next, and that's always sort of a place of personal great comfort to me. I do some of my best singing and thinking in the bathroom, and I just find it a pleasurable place to be, and decided to draw sort of quite a traditional old bath, though they're a nightmare to get in and out of. No bath's a bath without a duck, and lots of bubbles to maintain some dignity for the person who's in it, my husband. So those were the drawings, and it was a huge pleasure to do them. And now I'm going to read you a poem. I've written a lot of poetry afterwards. This is my wee book, and it's just full of junk, poetry. So here's one I wrote the other day. A lot of people have a bit of cognitive impairment, me too. So here's mine. There was an old lady of Brecon who said, "I don't know, but I reckon," when she looked in the mirror and thought, "She looks familiar. Oh, I'm that old lady of Brecon." So that's me done.
Thank you, Frances, for that. That was excellent. And we all really enjoyed seeing your illustrations there and seeing them enlarged on the screen. Really, if you excuse the pun, illustrated your talent. So thank you there. That was great. We've heard a little bit about the students, and we saw Jonah and heard Jonah's words on film. Well, we have got some of our student supporters with us today in person, and we're delighted that that's the case. And I'm now going to hand over to Lucy, who I've known now probably for 3 or 4 years, I guess, Lucy. So over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm going to read today the reflection that I wrote in the book that we had published. So when I volunteered with Time and Place, I was sure the poetry would be successful and beneficial to many people, but I was aware that I had limited experience in writing poetry as I hadn't done it since school. So I wondered how much help would I be? Despite this, I thoroughly enjoyed every minute taking part in this project. The most important thing that I learned was the importance of creativity, especially during uncertain times, for well-being. I saw how much people partaking in the project enjoyed and benefited from this creative outlet, and as a volunteer, I learned a lot from reading their poems. One that stands out for me was one that was about Alexa, and it spoke about how useful Alexa can be for someone living with dementia, and that wasn't something that I'd thought about before. I think the most important thing if you're going to volunteer with a project like this is to just focus on the person that you're working with and form a personal connection with them. Because prior to taking part, I was a bit nervous because it had all been moved online and I was worried, how's it going to work? But I think it went really well, and I found that working with somebody and learning together, because obviously I didn't know about poems either, so it worked really well that we were both learning together. And overall, I found that this project's been really inspiring and really beneficial to everybody who took part. And I really hope that it inspires other students, whether you're a psychology student, English student, from any course, to take part and volunteer with people with dementia. And I hope that other places as well take up similar projects. So yeah, I've really valued being part of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy, for that. And thank you for your involvement. And I know from your current studies, it's been part of a good platform for you to move on to your postgraduate course. So thank you and good luck with that. I'm now going to hand over, I know Lucy very well, as I said, from placement and beyond. I'm now going to hand over to someone who I've got to know really over the past year or so and had great support from within this project and beyond. I'm now going to hand over to Laura.
Hello, so I'm Laura, and I completely agree with everything that's been said by Lucy and Jonah in terms of reflections from students. I think one thing that I've really enjoyed about this project is so many of us haven't actually met, but we feel so connected because the poetry's brought us together in such uncertain times. And I think another thing I've really enjoyed is, so I always have that one drawer, well, I have a few, but I dread whenever I open it. I'm like, oh no, everything's going to fly out. But how this poetry kind of it changed my view on that draw and made me realise actually there's stuff to explore in there and to make a nice kind of poem out of this. So it really changed my view of my home, which I think was really, really important during the pandemic when we were all stuck inside. And I mean, for me, my only regret is I had so much going on with uni, so I was a bit of a late comer to the project, but Time and Place too, I will be there straight away.
Thank you, Laura. We'll keep you to that. Now, moving from the students back to the poets, Irene mentioned earlier around her involvement in the project through Rachel Niblock, and I vaguely remember zooming up to Fife with Rachel Niblock to speak to the group when the Time and Place project was being planned, and Irene was one of that group who stepped forward bravely to join us. Now the stage is yours, Irene.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So my poem was written, it's a narrative poem, and it was written during the project. It's a narrative from the lounge, and it's the one that was mentioned earlier. It's about Alexa. So we were introduced recently by Jerry, a friend who, like me, needs a reminder or 2 or 10. But we have become the best of friends, it seems. We greet each other every morning, and we remind each other to sleep well at night. You remind me of where I need to be, who I am meeting, and when. You help me stop burning my lunch, and you tell me when the eggs are boiled, always to perfection. I ask you about the weather, and the date, and the time, and though I'm sure I ask many times, your reply is always cheerful, though the weather is not always correct. I treat you to some of the most wonderful music to play, and you repay me with the lyrics, so I can sing along badly, and yet you never complain. Well, not out loud. You tell me when a parcel will arrive and what's in it, so no surprises. You keep me posted on the news and cheer me with a joke. How do you know somehow when I need one? You get to enjoy my beautiful family photos and the captured scenes on my travels, and you show them off proudly to the world, just like I do. You give me a recipe for tea when the mind has a blank and I forget what I need. Yes, Alexa, we were only introduced recently, and you humbly, patiently sit in my lounge, but you stand proud and strong in my head and my heart. Firm friends we have become, working together, making the days better, more manageable, easier, and happier.
Thank you, Irene. That was brilliant. Brilliant. It was brilliant to read, and it was excellent to hear this afternoon. So thank you for sharing that with us. It certainly has changed my view of Alexa. So thank you for that. Now, I'm going to introduce Theo, who I've known now probably for about a year. And Theo wasn't part of the project, as she said earlier, but really became an important part of the team as we moved into the second phase of it, and has done a great job in helping support us. And beyond this project, has been an amazing support to people like Melvin and myself through her work on her placement. So I'm really delighted that Theo's here to join us this afternoon and to bring the perspective of someone like maybe other people who will watch this project, who can come to this sort of work when you think it's too late, because it's never too late to come to this piece of work. Theo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Keith. So although I joined the project only after the book was completed, I can still very much feel the impact of the project. I'm currently completing an undergraduate psychology placement year and was only made aware of this project in the beginning of this year. And prior to this placement, I didn't know much about dementia. Since doing this placement and working with people with lived experiences, I've learned so much. For example, through this book, I learned about how something as seemingly simple as writing can be life-changing. The participants wrote about their everyday life and experiences, and through different forms of poetry as well. This is such a difficult task, but each piece of writing was so eloquent and has really helped me understand what it is like to live with dementia. Another perspective of the project that I've learnt about is one of the students. Speaking to the volunteers and reading their reflections in the book showed me how proud they were to be able to be part of this project. Similar to my experiences, they spoke about how this really gave them an insight into people's lived experiences with dementia. Many said that this project gave them the opportunity to learn more about people with dementia as an individual, and more importantly, they were able to develop good and strong relationships with their buddies. This has motivated them to continue volunteering for Kent-based deep groups and supporting said groups in various projects. And even now, I'm learning so much from these volunteers, and they've really inspired me to support in future projects. The positive experience extends past the participants and the volunteers. I've supported Keith and other participants in different presentations involving the Time and Place project, and it has always been well received by the audience. They're always so interested in hearing everyone's experiences, and as a student, this is really motivating for me to continue my support with people with dementia and to promote projects like this more often. This project has shown me that despite what challenges may come, whether it be dementia-related, COVID-related, or anything else, people can still come together and produce beautiful work. As we can see in this event, even after the book has been completed and published, the participants and student volunteers are all very keen to share their experiences and encourage others to do the same. I'm truly inspired by this book and have considered incorporating writing into my everyday life. I really look forward to seeing what else may come out of the Time and Place project, and hope that this inspires many more young individuals to support and work with people living with dementia. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. Thank you for expressing that so eloquently. Back to you, Rachel, to chair the next section of the afternoon.
Okay, so we're in the home straight now, guys. We're going to pause for a moment again and have another chat. I just thought before we do that, I'll just tell you some of the things that are happening in the chat box, because some of you might not realise, and you're getting a lot of positive feedback, obviously, about the emotions of some of the poems, the messages in the poems. People love the poetry. Every time one of you reads a poem out, you get a comment about what a wonderful poem that was, and how much people are loving the poetry. So that's very encouraging. I'll save all these comments at the end so you can see them. Also about your energy together as a group, that kind of, and I guess that, we can maybe talk a little bit about that, but what you have created together in becoming a group that works together in this one. I know some of you have talked about that. Francis, your signature has made the your illustrations extra special to people, and somebody said how much they appreciate handwriting in this day and age. So to see your signature in the illustrations is lovely.
I have to tell you, I always sign everything in case I ever get famous.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point.
I think you are a bit famous now, Francis.
You are. So yeah, just kind of, lots and lots of positivity coming from our audience who have stuck with us as well. I'm not sure if you can see, but I always worry that lots and lots of people might join at the beginning and then the numbers start to dwindle, but everybody who joined us has stuck with us, which is lovely in people's busy schedules. So we're just going to pause again, as I said, for a moment and have another chat. And I wonder if you have any messages for our audience. What are the messages you want them to know? What do you want to do next? You've talked a lot about time and place too. It's all news to me. What are we doing next then? What messages have you got for our audience and the world out there, Francis?
Don't wait until you get dementia to discover what wonderful things are going on in the world outside of the things that we normally all regard as important. Because without dementia, I never would have found all my lovely new friends or have been doing any of the things I'm doing now. So please, the rest of you, don't wait until something happens to you. Just grab whatever opportunities come your way now.
Words of wisdom there, Frances. Tracy.
Yeah, I concur actually. I used to be a nurse. I'm obviously retired now. And I always say to people that I'm busier now than I ever was when I was nursing. And I do a lot of work, volunteer work with the KMPT, like a local trust, and with a local trust. And I'll do a lot of get involved in lots of meetings. And always in normal times, I'm travelling here, there, and everywhere. Could do with a broomstick or something to get me there faster, maybe. But since lockdown, I've learnt loads of new skills, loads of new hobbies, and I don't know why I waited so long to do these things. I just, in each time you learn something new, it keeps those minds, the cobwebs away, really. And there's no reason why we can't do it. We just choose. Our life gets so busy, work gets busy, and I think we should just grab, like Francis says, the nettle, really, and just do what we can.
Thank you, Tracy. Melvin.
Oh, hang on, I've got to.
No, you've just turned yourself off, Melvin. You were on.
All right. Yeah. That's dementia. I think we should pause here and remember that somebody's being diagnosed every 7 seconds in this country, and not everyone is able to connect with DEEP and our own groups, because we get so much from them. We get so much from DEEP, and I get so much from friendship from our group in, and I just so wish that everyone with dementia could be the same, because I think I'm privileged to be able to belong to DEEP and to the Forget-Me-Nots group, because they've given me so much help and encouragement. And I think, we should just pause and think about all the people that have been not diagnosed in this period of 15, 18 months that haven't been able to get to a psychiatrist, and their families that have, I don't know how they've coped, but it must have been horrendous at times, because depending on how their dementia is, it's still difficult. And I just think about those.
Thank you, Melvin. I think an important point, isn't it, that these projects, I guess, are small. And the DEEP network is 100 groups, but that's not everybody with dementia, isn't it? And the Alzheimer's Society provides amazing services to people, but it's still not everybody with dementia. But I guess every project like this is it inspires, doesn't it? It's got, I think you said legacy, Keith. It's got the potential to show what is possible, and I guess that's what we can do with this. We're talking about what next. One of the things is about spreading this message far and wide, isn't it? And showing, as you said, just what is possible with dementia, but actually just kind of shaking off the cobwebs and trying something new is good for all of us. Keith, you had your hand up.
Well, I'll go after Brigitte. You go first, Brigitte.
Sorry, Brigitte, sorry.
Okay. I just want to say that when you get that diagnosis, it's devastating, not only for the person getting that diagnosis, but the family. And I was personally told, don't try anything new. We'd bought a new car, it had different controls. Oh no, stick with what you know. I didn't know poetry, really. I didn't take much notice of it at school. But it's become my best friend. It's become my release. It's become something I can turn to that will always be there. I've even got a poetry dictionary, and I'm not ashamed to say it. It took me a little while to work out how to use the thing, you know, but I persevered. And that little thing, that dictionary and learning how to use it, I wasn't going to ask anybody. I was going to learn how to use that. And I did. And it's one of my best friends, you know, and I just like to thank you all. And I'd just like us to be able to, like Melvin said, give lots of people the opportunity, because I was in a dark place and it's not dark anymore. So thank you, all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Melvin and Brigitte have expressed more eloquently than I can what I was going to say, which really is we can't reach everybody with projects like this, but we can try and reach as many people as possible, and we can try and encourage as many people as possible to have a go. But it needs professionals really to bottle this and to give it out as a dose, because that's the sort of language that those people can relate to. And instead of a dose of medicine or a dose of tablets, let's give them a dose of time and place, shall we? And things like time and place. I think there are no side effects which are adverse with this one.
Very good point. Any more messages? Gail, you're on mute. It's that second hour, we've all go on.
I think what it is as well is that it's people coming together. We've all got dementia, we all came together and we inspired one another, because we was working together and helping one another. And it's like peer support in a way, because we're there, we've got the lived experience, and so we're not going to laugh at anybody who makes a mistake, and we just gel. We just gel together, and I think that's really important. Yeah, it's just the interaction.
Yeah.
And Irene.
Yeah, I'm just like to agree with what everybody else has said. I mean, when I was a child, an old lady said to me that every curse brings a blessing, and you didn't have to look very hard to find the curse, but the blessings you do need to seek out sometimes. And getting a diagnosis of dementia, like many other diagnoses, is a curse. And it made me feel very solitary, but the blessing has come in the shape of the people and the opportunities that I've been afforded, that I would never have met most amazing friends locally and across the UK and further afield because of this diagnosis. And I have been so heartened as a teacher and always wanting to give of my learning. I've been so heartened in this project by the enthusiasm and generosity of the young people. That intergenerational aspect to this project has been really, really a part that has stuck with me, because it has meant, as to an old dear, a great deal that these young folk are so committed and so generous with their time. And I would a wee plea for lots of people out there: give your time, because you've no idea how much difference it makes to folk like us. It means the world to us to have your support.
Well, thank you so much, Irene. Young folk on the call, I wonder if any of you want to respond to that.
I mean, Irene's making it sound like we're just giving, but we're definitely gaining in a way as well. I've definitely gained more confidence from this project, and it's, yeah, I mean, it's so rewarding to be able to talk to people outside of my university kind of bubble and sphere and hear different perspectives. I've learned so much about dementia as well through reading the poems and just communicating. I think if you can communicate with people with dementia, then you can communicate with everyone, because it's all about kind of learning to be clear and concise, which is something I'm not always very good at.
Thank you. I think we'll draw the discussion to an end now. Keith, I'm going to bounce back to you to introduce the next section, or would you like me to?
Well, let's do it as a double act, shall we? I'll start and you can add to it, Rachel. At this point, we're going to bring another poet into the mix and invite on stage a poet who many of the audience will know from his television work or his work in national newspapers or on Radio 3 and Radio 4, because Rachel has recruited to Time and Place a poet of national renown named Ian Macmillan, who in the past has done a number of projects with Deep and is a great supporter of people with dementia. And Rachel sent him the book with a little nudge and a little invite and a little prod. And what he came up with is something which I think brings the afternoon to a rather fitting close. Back to you, Rachel.
Yes, I'm gonna share Ian's response to your book. So Ian read your book and penned his own poem in response to your book. People may know Ian from Radio 3's The Verb. He's kind of, as Keith has said, a well-known performance poet, and has done some work in the past with people with dementia, particularly through the Ideal Research Project, which is about living well with dementia. So I'm just going to give the floor to Ian's voice. Sadly, he can't be here today, but he's very encouraging of the kind of incredible work you've done, really. So I'm just going to do my fancy footwork again. I feel like it's gone really well, all this technology, and it does bother me a bit. We've only got minutes to go. So keep your fingers crossed, everyone.
Hello everybody, my name's Ian Macmillan and this is my poem about the writing you've all been doing. It's called This Time, That Place. This is the time, this is the place. Here is the rhyme, here is the space. Here are the lines crafted and burnished, rooms of the mind beautifully furnished. Here is the moment captured with care. I knew what you meant when you put that line there. Here are the lives written in art, taken from life, then taken to heart. Here is a book we will read for years. Come on, have a look. There's laughter and tears and thinking and feeling, inspiration and skill, the cards that life's dealing, the view from life's hill, the limericks, cinquains, the free verse all show our lives can contain so much more than we know. And writing, that act of the mind and the pen, well, it's a fact, proved over again that we are all poets. We're here. Come and look. Our talent, we show it in this marvellous book. Well done. Keep writing.
It feels like a fitting tribute to your work, and kind of positions you, I guess, in that poetry world, which, you know, perhaps wasn't your intention. You wanted to pass some time together, but you know, you're poets, and that kind of comes across loud and clear in Ian's poem. So we will type that poem up actually and make that available, and I'll maybe be able to send that out to our audience after this event, so that you can read it in your own time. We are kind of coming towards the end of our hour and a half. I guess I have one more question before I hand back to Keith to say goodbye to us all, which is, you know, what next? What happens next, everybody? What do you want to happen next? Nigel.
Can I just say I was late coming to this party, but I'm glad I did. And if there was a national list of people less likely to write a poem, I don't know if I'd be #1, but I certainly would have been in the top 10. But I managed it, and it just goes to show when you get people together as a collective voice, how powerful people are. It's authentic. It's not made up, although it's poetry, it's authentic. It's based on your own life experiences. And I think you can take it one stage further, or we can take it one stage further, by saying how those experiences of the poetries that we've read, that we've written, we've exchanged, has taken us further in our daily lives. People, there's a lot of conversation this week about curing the care system, curing social care. There's no boundaries for social care. It doesn't happen in hospitals, doesn't happen in nursing homes, doesn't happen in domiciliary care. It happens everywhere. Good social care is the fabric which binds us all together. We all share the one place, and we all encounter people with different needs. These poems show that there are people with differing needs. These poems show that we're all the same, and these people show that our needs are as raw as anybody else. So the next stage is, how do you incorporate this into your daily lives? We have to influence the conversation through poetry. It's powerful. My life was influenced by a number of little poets, but the one that sticks in my mind is the Maya Angelou quote of people may forget who you are. People may forget what you do. People may forget what you've done, but people will never forget the way you've made them feel. And I think that these poems do affect people, and they could be an adjunct for social change.
Thank you so much for that, Nigel. Just as you were kind of linking that to social care, which is really important this week in Dementia Action Week, it's just made me recall a comment from Yvette in Kent that actually poetry should be on prescription. It's quite a compelling idea, isn't it, from what you've all learned in your project. I just want to mention, oh, Brigitte, go on.
Just it's kind of linking with that, but social care is being talked about this week a lot, and I read an article about how the Dutch do it differently, as in caring for their people with dementia. In our country, if somebody stops feeding themselves, a note is written on there: we must now start feeding Fred because he can no longer do that. Over there, they give them different tools so they can continue to feed themselves. And in a way, that's what this poetry course has done. We could have all just sat and read or just sat, but it gave us the tools to carry on and to make the best of ourselves. So it does tie in with that. We need to look at social care. We need to know how to do it differently. It really hasn't worked the way before. You know, we've just enabled people in a different way before, enabled them to not live with dementia. We now need to enable them to live with it.
Fantastic, Brigitte, thank you. I just want to add a couple of comments in from the chat box before I hand back to Keith. One is about just how privileged people have been. Lots of people are saying that how privileged they've been to spend this last hour and a half with you, and to kind of be with you in this kind of quite moving afternoon. So that's really important. There's a lot of that, and that up in Scotland, we are to watch out for Scotland, because they're on a journey to create a book that everyone can use, with the working title Booming Dementia. We're being inspired by all of you and are blessed to have Irene in our midst. So I think that's up with the stand group, isn't it, up in Fife. So that kind of inspiration and the kind of what next, I think that's what we need to kind of put our heads back together again, isn't it, is what next. So before I hand back to Keith, I just want to say, thank you so much for you all as poets wanting to be here today and wanting to share your work and share your messages. Thank you so much to our audience who have been with us for the last hour and a half. we will, after Keith concludes, we'll kind of be whisking you out. If you could leave the meetings yourself in a few minutes, that would be great, because we're going to stay behind and have a after event party, are we not? So if you don't manage to turn your camera off or leave the meeting, if you could leave the meeting in a few minutes, that would be fabulous. We'll have a little break. If you don't, I'll try and whisk you away. But thank you so much for being here today. It's unusual times, but it means such a lot to us to have had a live audience with us for this event. We talked about whether we would record it and just show it, and it felt really important to have people with us. So thank you very much. And I'm going to hand back to Keith now.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel, and thank you to you as well, and Steve, for your support with this, and to endorse the thanks that Melvin said earlier this afternoon, because without you there would be no event today and there would be no book. There would be a project, but there wouldn't be that fabulous legacy and that fabulous conclusion to it. And if I may, I'm just going to indulge myself for a moment and hopefully speak on behalf of everyone in sharing one of those wretched haikus with you all. And this is a haiku that I wrote, and I had all of you in my mind when I wrote it, and maybe it's a good fitting way to close this afternoon. It's called Friendship Matters. Friends pass through our lives, filling our hearts with their love, stays with us forever. One of my heroes of my younger days, you might recognize one of his quotes when he said that, and I apply this to this project, time and place isn't the best thing I've ever done, but it's in the top one. So thank you very much.
I've done it. I've been on mute right at the end. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for being with us. If you want to find out more, you can have a look on the links that I've added into the chat box, but we will send you an email out. Have a look in your junk folder. I think perhaps a few of the Eventbrite emails went into people's junk folders today with the Zoom link on. But we'll send you some links and things from this meeting, and just our hugest thanks for spending an hour and a half with us today. So goodbye, and going start writing some poetry, I think would be our message, wouldn't it? Bye.